perhaps is a platform I use to broadcast out to a whole bunch of other social media things. But the best way to interact with these broadcasts is to follow the link at the top, join on Hats. That way you get to see all the comments if people make any, and generally interact more effectively. That said, let's quickly explain what I'm doing. So I'm out here at Grove Farm. It's a little nature reserve area in London, fairly small patch, bit of woodland, bit of grassland. And what I did here was put out, what I'll show you now, which is a pheromone lure trap. So you can see what this is. This is essentially a plastic box with a lid on it and a top on it and a funnel inside. And in the top of there is a little container which contains this. And what that is synthetic pheromones. Synthetic pheromones of a female moth. An artificial concoction that's been made by people that resembles the sex chemicals, the sex pheromones emitted by a female moth. And what you do is you hang these out with these traps, and that attracts the male moths, scenting what they think of the female. They come in, they drop into the trap. Now, there's various rules around using these traps, sort of ethical guidelines about how long you leave them out for, which is to try not to leave them out very long, and to make sure you inspect them. So I have actually gone through this trap already and found what was in it. But what I would normally do when I came to one of these traps is you would come to the trap, you would check from the outside, you would have a look and see if there's anything in there, and then you can just open up the bottom of it and that would allow you to look inside. But I've already done that because I didn't want to be wasting time when the moths were in there in these warm conditions doing that when you're looking at them when I'm doing this broadcast. So I already went through it. The lure we used was designed for a species called the yellow-legged clearwing, Synanthedon vespiformis. But it is known to also attract at least one other species, the orange-tailed clearwing, which is the one I mentioned in the title of the broadcast. And that's the one that came here. We had two specimens. I've let one of them go. I've kept one of them briefly just to let people have a look at it. So that is contained here in this pot. It's quite active, so you can see it's not been harmed by its experience. But you can see this is quite an interesting type of moth because, as its name suggests, a clearwing moth. Its wings are largely transparent, and it resembles, to some extent, a hymenopteron, a wasp or bee or something of that sort that could possibly sting and defend itself. So it's mimicking those, although in itself it's not harmful at all. It can't sting or do any damage. And yeah, these are a relatively under-recorded group of moths. They aren't that easy to see. I mean, as you can see against my hand, it's not exactly a huge thing. And if it was flying around, the undergrowth here or these trees here, you could easily not see that. And unlike a lot of moth species, it doesn't come to light. It doesn't come out and let us see it at a light source. So that means they're relatively under-recorded, but in recent years there's been more and more use of these synthetic pheromones, like the ones I was using in the trap there. And that's allowed us to get more of a sense that these species are probably much more common than we thought they were. They tend to come to the lures fairly frequently. I say I've had a couple of these on this site where, as far as I'm aware, they weren't known from this site. So rather a nice species. And that really was all I was going to show you. I didn't get any other species. I didn't get the yellow-legged clearwing, which is perhaps the one I was slightly more expecting to get. Or at least I would have been more expecting to get if I hadn't been basically getting this species mostly this year. The habitat is more typical for yellow-legged clearwing with a lot of old oak. This is typically associated with Gelder rose and wayfaring tree. Gelder rose there might be a little bit in here, but there isn't really any wayfaring tree in here. But it's thought that its larvae probably feed on other plants as well. And that's perhaps just not been documented before, and that's why it's much more common than you might otherwise think. So anyway, there we go. That is an orange-tailed clearwing attracted to a synthetic pheromone lure. I just thought it would be an interesting thing to have a quick look at here, linked to Moth Week.